sure everybody eats. We eat later. Yeah.
Murder.
Yeah. Yeah. Or 10.
His defending attorney got up for the closing arguments. Over the course of the trial, lots of evidence had been presented to show this guy's guilt, and he was very likely to be convicted. So his defense attorney resorted to some tricks. And he got up during his closing arguments and looked at his watch and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have something to tell you. I have a surprise for you. In just a moment, the victim of this crime, this supposed crime, is going to walk through the back doors of this courtroom." And everyone turned to look. The jury turned to look, the whole gallery, everyone turned to look at the back doors. And nothing happened. And then the defense attorney said, "Well, actually, I made that up. But you all looked, and therefore you demonstrated that you have reasonable doubt in this case. You had doubts by looking. You showed that you doubted that there was even a crime in the first place. You must acquit my client." He sat down. The jury went away to deliberate, and they didn't deliberate long. They came right back out and pronounced their verdict guilty. After the buzz of the courtroom had died down, the attorney went over and talked to the foreman of the jury and said, "How could you possibly have come up with that decision? We all saw you look. We all saw you look at the back door at my suggestion. You had to have had some doubt." And the foreman didn't miss a beat. He looked the lawyer right in the eye and said, "Yeah, we all looked. Your client didn't." This morning in our sermon series for the summer, we have the second to last in this sermon series exploring themes from the book Steps to Christ, and today we are looking at the topic of doubt. And of course, we use the word in lots of different ways, right? In the courtroom environment, we talk about a reasonable doubt or without a shadow of a doubt. And in relationships or in interview process, we talk about giving the benefit of the doubt. And in the intellectual or philosophical realm, we talk about seeds of doubt being planted or being watered over time. But when we talk about doubt as it relates to Christian spirituality, we're usually speaking of the kind of doubt that says, is God really there? Is God actually in control? Do I have what it takes? Am I loved as I am? And that's the kind of doubt we explore in today's sermon. It's the kind that puts cracks in our worldview or renders belief systems once held firm a little bit unstable, or it causes us to question our identity. The doubt we look at today in today's sermon is expressed many times throughout the scriptures even. It's the type we read about so often in the Psalms. Will the Lord reject forever? It reads. Will he ever show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? You said, I made a covenant with my chosen one. I have sworn to David, my servant, but you have rejected. You have spurned, you have renounced the covenant of your servant, and you have defiled his crown in the dust. Lord, where is your former great love, which you in faithfulness swore to David? Why, Lord, do you reject me and hide your face from me? You have taken me from friend and neighbor, and darkness is my closest friend. My God, why have you forsaken me? And so before we say anything else about doubt today, I think we must first say this. Doubt is normal. It's normal. Erasing doubt from the Christian story would be to erase the story of Christ himself. From Jeremiah to Jesus, from Saul of Tarsus to Samuel, the scriptures are filled with great stories and experiences expressing faith, and there's many of the same expressing doubt. The scriptures testify that to be human is to dance with uncertainty. And too often, I think that we think of doubt as some kind of sin or as a type of moral failure. If we're questioning things, something must be wrong with us. I love what Barbara Brown Taylor writes in her book, When God is Silent, about Ezekiel, the prophet. There was no hiding of the divine face from Ezekiel, she writes. He both saw it and heard it. But the privilege of that full revelation did not include words to describe it. His accounts are packed with something like, not exactly like. His vision exceeds his ability to say it more with the language that he has. He will not trespass upon the silence of God. There are things no mortal should say, even if one sees them and is allowed to live through them. Even for a prophet, mystery and even doubt remains. And so first, today, if you find yourself in a season of doubt, if you're struggling with sin or with aspects of your faith, or you're sick, or you're wrestling, or you feel like a pariah for whatever reason, if you take nothing else from this sermon, may you take the fact that you are not alone in that experience. Ellen White, in the chapter of Steps to Christ that gives us our topic for today, she writes, "If it were possible for created beings to attain a full understanding of God and his works, then, having reached this point, there would be for them no further discovery of the truth, no growth in knowledge, no further development of mind or heart. God would no longer be supreme, and man, having reached the limit of knowledge and attainment, would cease to advance. Let us thank God that this is not so. God is infinite," she writes. "In him are all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, and to all eternity men may be ever searching, ever learning, and yet never exhausts the treasures of his wisdom, his goodness, and his power." This morning, I want to tell you not only that is doubt part and parcel to the experience of being a Christian, it's also regularly an essential ingredient for growth. Without it, we become static. And in fact, I think doubt is often the initial catalyst for the best kinds of change. And I think it's true for individuals, for organizations, and even for cultures. I think about Ellen White, James White, Uriah Smith, William Miller, and the other pioneers of the Adventist faith. And I think of the doubts that they had about the prevailing Christian teachings of their time, teachings about an eternally burning hell or Sabbath or the nature of evil. I believe that the world is a better place because of the doubts that they didn't stifle but explored. And we're here in this room worshiping on a Sabbath morning in part because of doubt. I think about this fall. In just about 2 months exactly, we will celebrate the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. Had Martin Luther not doubted the prevailing theology of his time, had he not chosen to explore the cracks in this system that he had inherited, the church and the world would be a different place entirely. We can go as far back or even farther than Peter, the disciple, who, full of confidence in his faith system that very explicitly excluded some people as unholy and unclean and not welcome, this Peter, initially rejected the doubt that was implanted in his mind by way of a dream. You remember the story, right? Acts chapter 10, this sheet full of unclean animals is spread before him, right? And in the dream, God tells him, kill and eat. Break these ritual purity rules that you followed for a lifetime. And he responds by saying, no, I've never had anything to do with anything unclean. The very idea was anathema to Peter. He couldn't fathom a faith system that didn't have these stringent rules about what's in and what's out, who's in and who's out. He couldn't imagine eating that, let alone imagining outsiders, non-Jews, being welcomed to the table of grace. But the dream, now get this, a dream, not conversation, not Bible study, not ecclesiastical debate, not denominational consensus, a dream plants this little kernel of doubt in Peter's life, a doubt that I believe was holy and changed the face of the planet, changed Christianity forever. No, doubt is not only normal, it's often your friend. It's not doubt that leads people to hold signs that say God hates you at funerals. No, that's the absence of doubt. It's not doubt that leads people to strap themselves with explosives. That's rock solid certainty. It's not doubt that drives people to put on white robes and to pronounce themselves superior because of their race. No, that's naked conviction. The tree of life in the Garden of Eden is the tree of questions, of growth, of discovery. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the tree of confidence, of absolute knowing, and crystal clear. That first temptation in the garden can reasonably be interpreted as a temptation, as a proposition to trade doubt for certainty. And so then one more thing becomes clear as we pass through this dark valley of doubt. Not only are we never the first believers to sojourn there, but very often something new and beautiful is underway and just around the corner. The problem, and it's a real problem, the problem with doubt is that despite the good that it can initiate, despite the fact that it's a ubiquitous human experience, doubt is almost universally unpleasant. I mean, there's a precious few of us for whom doubt is exciting and it's great new opportunities and it's stimulating and liberating, but for the majority of us, it's not very fun at all, especially when doubt is cracking apart our worldviews or breaking things that we once held firm. Doubt isn't fun at all. When we lose someone we love to disease or accident, when we lose our home or a relationship or a job, when we suffer in depression, doubt can feel like fear. This anxious discomfort where the things that we once trusted and felt safe are no longer trustworthy, where the unknown that we're now experiencing begins to cast a shadow over all kinds of things that we once relied upon. When we're victimized and made to feel powerless in trauma, doubt can feel like shame, leading us to question whether or not we belong, if we have a place, if we're good enough, if we have what it takes. And this kind of doubt can travel with us for generations even, causing us to have these cycles of paralysis where we question who we even are. Express doubts, certain doubts, the wrong ones in the wrong circles, and the consequences can be swift and dire. And so for some of us, we keep our doubt a secret. We keep it very well hidden. When I asked my Facebook friends a couple of weeks ago how they feel and experience doubt, many responded with insightful public comments, but you wouldn't believe how many people responded with really interesting and meaningful responses to me in private. I recommend Peter Enns' book on this topic, The Sin of Certainty. In it, he has this great line, church is too often, and I would say maybe church people too often the most risky place to be spiritually honest. I wouldn't want to put motives on my Facebook friends for the reasons they responded the way they did, but I couldn't help but think of the great many of us for whom we try to keep our doubts under covers. And for those of us who try to keep those doubts close to the chest and hidden from other people, that can lead us to a place where we feel isolated by our doubt or lonely by our doubt. It might even be that for some of us, keeping our doubt secret actually holds us back from growth that we have in front of us. But I don't think that the problem with doubt is only that it just doesn't feel good, that it's not fun. I don't think doubt is an acceptable mindset or attitude to have just in American culture at large. I mean, think about how doubt is received in American politics today. I mean, how many times do you hear a politician in a press conference responding to a question by saying, I don't know. I've never thought of that before. I'm going to have to think about it. I don't have an opinion about that. How often do you hear that? Like, never. I don't think I've ever heard that before. I mean, it would be political suicide. You don't sell books and make headlines and earn votes by being modest. You do it by minimizing as many doubts as possible on all the important points. Regardless of your political opinions, I think we all know that Donald Trump did not get elected president because he got up in front of rallies and said, I'm going to have to do some research about that before I give my answer. No, he didn't get elected president because he tweets niceties, and that's not what we as Americans, by and large, want, regardless of our political opinion. We, broadly speaking, want exactly what he offers us: big, brash, bold opinions in one end or the other, hopefully ones that verify what we already think, right? We don't want nuance. We don't want subtleties. We want that 15-second, 500-word bomb that just hits it and gets away. We don't want the hours-long reflection that teases out the truth. That's not what we want as a people. And so, emotionally and culturally, doubt is no fun. It's uncomfortable, but that's not all. I think doubt can also be problematic for organizations. For the powers that be, doubt can be downright terrifying. Institutions are made, they're set up in many ways to minimize uncertainty, to make clarity, to streamline productivity, and to maintain homogeneity. Our organizations, they want clarity and direction, not vague hopes. And to a degree, I think this is a good thing. I think it's why we make organizations in the first place. They start to grow, they start to become complex and increase in size, and organizations have to create structure and rules and boundaries in order to keep growing. If they don't, they just break apart and they have all kinds of little pods along the way. But there's a cost to that boundary making, right? And a lot of times it's not the growth, it's other less quantifiable forms of growth. We as the Adventist Church, we voted our very first minimal soft statement of beliefs in 1872, in part to minimize the chaos of all these different people going in different directions. We need to be on the same page. And then in 1931, the next statement of beliefs, that was more from pressure on the outside. And then finally in 1980, the year before I was born, a statement of beliefs, and expanded to more what we think of and see the Adventist statement of beliefs as today. At that time, 27 official positions voted by the General Conference. So we as an organization, we've shifted from this small, disorganized band of misfits and preachers who shared great confidence in a few things God's love, the authority of the Scriptures, the second coming of Jesus, and lots of disagreements about all kinds of other things. We've shifted from that disorganized band to this multi-tiered international organization now, a century and a half later, that has very explicit theological expectations for people at every level, for all 20-some-odd million of us. And I've lived my life exclusively in this era of Adventist church history, where it seems like, to me, doubt is more feared and shunned than it is regarded or encouraged as a tool for discovery. And I feel tension in that. I feel tension in it personally, as a leader, as a pastor, expressing questions and doubts or nuance about long-held beliefs or traditions is a dangerous tack to take personally. And I think it's a dangerous tack to take organizationally as well. I can't help but wonder if we've missed out on maturing as a body in certain ways because our leaders are scared to embody the kind of doubt that the early pioneers modeled. If you think of those voices today in the Adventist tribe that have the most influence and the biggest followings, I don't have to name them, but we all know that they're the ones that have the black and white answers for all of our questions, all of our doubts, unequivocal clarity and precision. The Adventist leaders with the biggest voices are there because they're confident and brash, not because they're nuanced and meek. And I think just like in American culture, that's exactly what we want. Doubt can be terrifying for us as individuals and for the organization as a whole. And I think we'll try to grab security wherever we can get it, even if it's from someone that says that women are subservient to men, or that we have to work ourselves to absolute perfection before Jesus comes in order to be okay, or that God sends natural disasters to punish people for the latest cultural sin du jour. So what do we do then? How do we make our way through this troubling, anxious, and even shameful experience of doubt without succumbing to despair or the sins of certainty? How do we grapple responsibly with our questions without being crushed in nihilism, but also not blindly following the boldest voice on the corner? Well, to answer that, I have some questions for you. What's the opposite of summer? Winter. What's the opposite of happy? Sad. What's the opposite of cats? Dogs. What's the opposite of fasting? Feasting. And the opposite of chocolate? Disappointment. Disappointment is the opposite of chocolate. And what's the opposite of young? Old. And what's the opposite of doubt? I have to tell you, the opposite of doubt is not faith. The opposite of doubt is certainty. Doubt is to faith what fear is to courage. You can't be brave unless you're also afraid, and you cannot have faith unless you also have doubt. Trusting deeply, walking forward despite our doubt is a dance. It's a give and take, a holy interplay. When we read the biographies of Jesus' life, we don't find Jesus we do find him offering some strident positions and some strident demonstrations along the way. But more often than not, he leaves us with lingering questions. He returns questions with questions. He gives metaphors and word pictures. He gives half answers and little samples. I have so many more things I want to tell you, he says in John 16, but you're not ready to hear it. mean, his goal, quite obviously, isn't that we would know everything exactly and precisely, but rather that even though we look at things, in the words of Paul, through a mirror that has been darkened, we will still rely on the one in whom we trust. The embodied Word of God, Jesus, is more interested in our faith than our certainty. And so we've come full circle, right? Doubt is unavoidable for those of us who are on the journey of Christian discipleship. Faith is impossible without it. But I think we can walk through it with courage and confidence. I'll close with this. This past week, our oldest son began, a couple weeks ago now, has begun kindergarten at Rogers School. And I have to tell you, now as a parent of Rogers, I'm thrilled to be a part of the family. I've been a cheerleader for a long time as a pastor, but man, I'm just so impressed with what is going on. I love the program, I love the teachers, I love the spirit. If you teach there, thank you. Thank you. If you work there, if you support that, thank you for making that possible. Finn's come home every single day excited, telling me about Mrs. Schaefer did this, and Mr. Kirby did that, and this and that. And he had his first cello lesson this week. It's brilliant, and I'm thrilled. And along with that has been another little transition in the Loewen family, and that's been that our youngest boy has started to sample out preschool a couple of mornings a week. And for him, the process has been a little more bumpy. There's been some tears along the way, in fact. And let's be honest. He has some doubts about whether or not this is the best idea for his life. And, you know, as he was expressing those doubts, I could have responded with lots of facts. Black and white, this school is great. They have a great teacher-to-student ratio. They're licensed, they're trained, it's safe. They have lots of toys. They have great snacks. There's all kinds of fun things. I could give him all kinds of facts. These people are trained, they're experts, they have lots of years of experience. I could have given him all those facts, but we all know that those facts would not have been helpful to him. It would have not made his doubt go away at all. And so I just started reminding him, Sawyer, I'm going to drop you off here. But in a couple hours, your grandma's going to come get you. In a couple hours, your grandma's going to come get you. She's coming to get you. And he started repeating that after me. Grandma's going to come get me. Grandma's coming to get me. Grandma's coming to get me. You know, it's perfectly fine to ask questions, what and why and how. It's perfectly fine to ask those questions as we navigate life, to explore that doubt and even to see what beauty and good it will come. But as I've found, and as I've heard Pastor Troy share his wisdom to me over the years, many times say there's a far better question than why or what or how. It's who. Jesus is coming to get you. Jesus is coming to get you. We don't know maybe what's going to happen in those couple of hours in the meantime, but he's coming to get you. He's just around the corner. You're not alone. Jesus is coming to get you.
Saith your God, saith your God. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, that her iniquity is pardoned. The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God.
after the postlude, one of our elders, Mel Lang, will be right over here in the front row to pray with anybody who would like that. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you, always, to the very end of the age." Amen.